Hello, I'm Sarah Lowther, and this is a Focus IR conversation with London-listed Blencowe Resources. It's developing the Orom-Cross Graphite Project in Uganda with a view to production in 2025. I'm delighted to be joined by the Chief Executive, Mike Ralston. So, Mike, you acquired the Orom Graphite Project in October 2019. How far has it exceeded the potential it had when you bought it?
No, that's a good question, Sarah. When we bought it, we really didn't know several things. We did some DD on the metallurgical testing to know that we could take it to concentrate, but it's far exceeded our expectations in that regard. We definitely knew that it was an estimated 2 to 3 billion tonnes of graphite, so I guess we could spend a whole life drilling that out and still wouldn't get anywhere near that. But I think it's the quality of the product in terms of the met test work that we've done that has really made us most excited about the project, and the fact that we can bring it into production at a very low cost. So, it's a great project. It's a standout for many good reasons that we can go into if you want to ask those ones.
So, talk to me about, you said low cost there, so compared to, your peers, what do you mean when you say low cost?
Well, our PFS suggested that we'd have just under $500 per tonne life of mine operating cost. That's delivered FOB at Mombasa Port. We think in the feasibility study, the definitive study that we're doing now, we'll get that down quite considerably. So we're probably talking around about $400 to $450. That's pretty low. That's definitely taking us into the low percentile. And you need to do that in graphite because the margins aren't particularly high for mining and selling as a concentrate.
So then investors will be thinking, right, low cost. So when would we be hearing about cash flow? Should you be getting into production in 2025?
Well, our plan at this stage is to kick off with a small plant in 2025 by the end of next year. And that's really all about phase one, getting us into production, putting the team on the ground, getting them experienced at producing, mining and processing graphite, and most importantly of all, selling it, because graphite selling is probably the toughest part of all. So it's designed to get us into production and to get the process underway. And then once we're comfortable that we're doing things properly and we're delivering the recoveries and the grades that we need to, then we can upscale it to the 50,000 tonne, which is what we're looking to do as phase two. It's going to be a staged process as we go forward. But I think that's a lower risk option to take rather than throwing all this capex at something that's untitled, untested, and we want to make sure that we get it right.
Okay, so talk to me about selling. Have you lined up any customers yet? Are there any off-takers?
Well, we have, yes. We've got plenty of interest. The thing that makes graphite unique is that you're not selling onto a London metal market or into an exchange or some mint in terms of precious metals. You're selling directly to end users, and those end users are very discerning, which means that they all want to get product as end product, and they want to test it, particularly the smaller fibers product that goes into the batteries. So this whole process is called qualification or pre-qualification, and it takes many years to get done. We're probably in the second year of doing it, and we've gone through a 100-tonne bulk soluble test program last year. We're currently in the midst of a 600-tonne bulk soluble test program at the moment, and once that's completed, we think we'll be able to then get qualified and be able to bring forward all the offtake partners. But the interest is there. They've all seen our met test work. They've all seen our smaller samples. They like what they see. It's just a question of doing it on a much more commercial scale, bulk, and getting the same results and showing them that we can do it, and then we can move into the really sort of exciting offtake phase. Not far away.
Okay, so talking about excitement, Mike, you've recently been to China and South Korea to discuss offtake agreements. Can you let me know how those discussions are progressing?
Well, actually, we were in China to discuss a lot more than offtake. We definitely talked to potential offtakers, yes, which went well. We were also visiting one of the largest graphite producers in the world, which is very interesting because that's where we aspire to be. And we visited a couple of smaller plants, which is where we'll start off next year in terms of our first phase. So we visited existing operations to see exactly what they're doing. We spoke to a lot of EPC contractors and parties that will be involved in building our processing facilities and our mine camp and everything that will happen on site. And we talked to off-takers, and we also talked to downstream SPG producers, because that's a very exciting part of our strategy that's going to come into play going forward. So, yeah, we did a lot of work in various different parts of China and ultimately in Korea, where we were talking to Posco, the big South Korean conglomerate that's a very, very large buyer of products relating to graphite. And yeah, in all senses, it went very, very well. We were very excited about what we saw, and everybody seems to be interested in what we're going to be able to sell them.
But I'm quite sure that they ask this question, which is about the stability of Uganda. I'm just wondering how mining-friendly a jurisdiction it is, because according to the US government, it's a level 3, which means reconsider travel.
Well, I travel there all the time, and I think it's a fantastic place. We feel very safe. Look, starting right at the very top, we've got incredible support from the government, literally right up to the very top, and several ministers and various different levels of government support all the way through to the community. And we couldn't ask for better reception and better support. They've been outstanding, and we commend them for that, because they want to see this mine up and running as much as we do. So we think Uganda is one of the safest jurisdictions in Africa to build a long-term project. And frankly, there's nothing out there that would suggest different. You can drive up to mine site on tarred roads. It's safe. There's a lot of infrastructure there. The people are friendly. And yeah, I don't really know why the level 3 or whatever you call it is in place, because the tourists are traveling there all the time and having a fantastic time. So like everywhere in Africa, you just got to be careful. And obviously with that support, comes a lot of help from the government, but we think it's a great place to be doing business.
And what's your relationship like with the community from a societal point of view?
Well, we inherited a community agreement from our predecessors, which they had negotiated, which was great because these things take a while. We decided that it actually didn't benefit the community as much as we thought it should. So we renegotiated it just to help them to define dates by which we'd give them payments. And essentially we've set out a series of payments upon milestones, which we've already given them the first payment. And it's a considerable amount of money for them. So they've been able to go and buy farm equipment, agricultural machinery, and then get on with what they do best, and that's farming. And we'll continue to support the community going forward. We've got a lot of plans to assist them in terms of training and jobs where we can. Definitely in terms of things like the local clinic, schools, and definitely water bores. And every way we can, we want to help them. It's in our interest to have a happy community. They've been supportive, and we'll obviously continue to do that.
Okay. Now, recently, non-dilutive funding came in the form of a strategic investment from a specialist African investor. Who are they, and have they indicated that they are prepared to invest more?
It's a syndicate of African investors. I'm African myself, so I've got a lot of contacts out there, and there's just a lot of interest, literally from all over Africa, to be involved in a battery metals project in Africa that's got the likes of the DFC involved. And we were approached by a syndicate of African investors. They're all high net worths. They've all got long-term investment plans. No one's selling tomorrow. And that's exactly the kind of investor we want. And to have the local African interest and support is obviously valuable. They'll definitely put in more money going forward. It's just a question of us finding the right time We're obviously got a funding strategy where we're trying to keep dilution down to a minimum, so we really only take cash as and when we need it. And we've been lucky enough to be getting cash over the last 6 months from the DFC. So, yeah, they're a great supporter, and, yeah, they will definitely take more.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about conflicts of interest, because you're receiving grants from the United States International Development Finance Corporation, but yet you're having conversations with China and Korea. Or is it all mutually... Does everyone have an understanding? Will they all be beneficiaries?
Well, Korea and the United States are very close. They're obviously both part of the MSP, the Mineral Services Partnership, and there's no conflict or issues there whatsoever. So take Korea out of the equation. China definitely has issues with the States and back in reverse. Look, at the end of the day, we understand that the Western world and the United States in particular wants to remove their dependency on China, which today produces almost 100% of the purified graphite product that goes into the lithium-ion batteries. We understand that that's a real bottleneck, and that can create some geopolitical issues going forward. So we want to be part of the solution that provides this particular product, and ultimately outside of China, obviously, and ultimately is able to reduce the dependency that exists today. We've made people like the DFC and other interested funding parties aware that there has to be some level of involvement with the Chinese. I mean, today, if you're selling any product, you've almost certainly got to be selling it into China or through China to get purified. And so we've got to work with them in whatever way we can for a period of time to learn, to take that ownership, to take that IP and their 30 years of experience that they've got over all of us. And ultimately, we'll take that on board. We'll learn what needs to be done, and we'll be able to do it ourselves. So we're trying to find, I guess, the right balance where we understand that this is an issue, but at the same time, we also understand that to solve the problem, we need to have a certain time and amount of effort that we can put in to learn what they've learned over the last couple of decades.
2 more questions, if I may, Mike. So if you can briefly outline the pathway to production, because 2025 is sort of 7 months away.
Yeah, just to be clear, we're talking about getting to production by the end of next year. We're not going to be producing during the year. So at this stage, we're trying as hard as we can to complete our definitive feasibility study by the end of this calendar year. There are certain things that are out of our control which may delay that into the first quarter of 2025, but I'm not that fussed, because at the end of the day, this is not a race. The most important thing we've got to do is get it right. And we are learning a lot. We've shifted our strategy to include this downstream processing in country more recently. And so getting it right is far more important than trying to go very, very fast and miss something out that's crucial. So the plan would be the next 9 to 12 months to basically complete the definitive study, and then take it through the DFC as our proposed funding partner, to ask them if they will participate in that funding solution, and any other funding party that we're speaking to, and we are speaking to several, and build a funding solution. Because at the end of the day, you can have all the off-takers in the world, but if you can't raise the money to build it, it's not going to happen. And if we are able to put that solution together, and we've already started that work, it's not as if it's just going to start next year, it's happening as we speak. But if we have got the funds available, then we'll obviously look to put that small initial phase plant in by the end of next year. We can do that very quickly. And that's about a 6-month turnaround to get it done. And then we'll be producing in 2026. And then we'd look to build the bigger plant in 2026 for 2027 production. And that's a much grander scale. Once we've learned, once we've got a bit of experience, a bit of sort of, expertise in graphite processing.
Okay, finally, and this is my gift to you. You mentioned expertise there. So what is the characteristic of the board that will make this venture a success? And why should investors add your ticker to their portfolio?
Well, it's a number of things, really. Graphite is a non-replaceable input into the lithium-ion batteries. So if you've been reading anything about the surge to renewables, the transition to renewables for fossil fuels, you will accept that there has to be storage of energy, and that storage at the moment is happening through lithium-ion batteries. So every lithium-ion battery that gets produced has to have more graphite in it than any other product. So there's a lot of graphite going into it. Some of it is synthetic, and some of it is natural flake, which is what we're producing. And so the demand is expected to go up. I hear various different ideas as to what that is going to be, and I don't think, to be honest, anyone really knows, but it is certainly going to go up. On the flip side, supply of graphite, whilst it's abundant in supply all around the world, it's probably one of the more difficult metals and minerals to bring into production, mainly because you have to go through this very complicated pre-qualification process to get your end product into off-takers to be accepted by them. And many people, many projects that have high costs, be it capex or opex, are just not going to be viable because the margins are not there. So I see a situation where there's increased demand. There's a very few graphite producers that are going to start, or new mines that are going to kick off, and it's going to create some demand-supply imbalance. We think that we know that we've got a unique project. We have a low operating cost, we have a low capital cost to start it up, and we have a very high purity of product. Those are the three key ingredients. And we've got a downstream strategy to upgrade to a higher value in country, which also adds more margin. So if you're going to invest into graphite, those are the key elements you're going to be looking out for in any company: no operating cost, low capex, purity of product, and a downstream strategy. And we think we're pretty unique in having all of those, because not many projects do. So yeah, if you like graphite, we think that Blencowe is one of the unique standout tier 1 projects to be invested into going forward.
Many thanks, Mike Ralston, Chief Executive of Blencowe Resources. Thank you very much indeed.